Sarah loved her quiet life in Maplewood. Every morning she tended her garden from her wheelchair, smiling at neighbors who waved back. The sun was warm, the flowers were blooming, and everything felt perfect. She had no idea that across the street, someone was watching her with a gun. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. It was a bright, sunny day in Maplewood, a quiet suburban neighborhood. Kids played in the yards, birds chirped, and the smell of fresh-cut grass filled the air. Sarah, a kind-hearted woman in her 30s, lived on Oak Street. She used a wheelchair since a car accident 5 years ago left her unable to walk. Despite her struggles, Sarah always smiled and waved at her neighbors. Everyone loved her. Today, Sarah was outside her small, tidy house, tending to her garden. Her hands moved carefully, pulling weeds and watering flowers. The sun warmed her face and she felt peaceful. But that peace wouldn't last. Across the street, a woman named Victoria watched Sarah from her porch. Victoria was new to Maplewood. She was tall, blonde, and always wore sharp outfits, like her red blazer that stood out like fire. Nobody knew much about her, but she had a cold stare that made people uneasy. Neighbors whispered about her, saying she seemed angry all the time. Some said she carried a gun, but nobody believed it. Not in Maplewood. Sarah didn't notice Victoria staring. She was humming a song, lost in her work. Suddenly, a loud crack split the air. Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her shoulder. Pain shot through her body and blood seeped through her fingers. She looked down, shocked, as red stained her white shirt. Tears filled her eyes and she cried out, her voice shaking. Neighbors froze. Mrs. Jenkins, watering her roses, dropped her hose. Mr. Patel, walking his dog, stopped dead in his tracks. Kids on bikes skidded to a halt, their mouths open. Everyone turned toward the sound. There on her porch stood Victoria holding a smoking gun. Her face was hard, her lips curled into a cruel smile. Why? Sarah sobbed, clutching her shoulder. Her wheelchair wobbled as she tried to move. Why did you do this? Victoria didn't answer. She lowered the gun slowly, her eyes locked on Sarah. The neighbors started shouting. Call the police, yelled Mr. Patel. Mrs. Jenkins ran toward Sarah, her hands shaking. Hold on, Sarah. We're getting help. But the chaos was just beginning. In the distance, a low rumble grew louder. Everyone turned to see 3 military trucks rolling down the street. Their engines roared and dust kicked up behind them. Armed soldiers in green uniforms jumped out, their boots hitting the pavement. They carried rifles and moved fast, spreading out across the neighborhood. Stay where you are, a soldier shouted through a megaphone. This area is under lockdown. The neighbors panicked. Some ran inside their houses, slamming doors. Others stood frozen, unsure what to do. Kids cried, clinging to their parents. Sarah sat in her wheelchair, blood dripping down her arm, tears streaming down her face. She didn't understand what was happening. Why was Victoria shooting? Why were soldiers here? Victoria stepped off her porch, still holding the gun. She walked toward Sarah, her heels clicking on the pavement. The neighbors shouted at her to stop, but she ignored them. Her red blazer gleamed in the sunlight, and her cold eyes never left Sarah. You thought you could hide, Victoria said, her voice low and sharp. You thought nobody would find out. Sarah shook her head, confused. I don't know what you're talking about. Please leave me alone. Mrs. Jenkins reached Sarah and knelt beside her. Don't move, honey, she said, pressing a cloth to Sarah's bleeding shoulder. We'll get you to a hospital. But the soldiers were closing in. One of them, a tall man with a stern face, pointed at Victoria. Drop the weapon, he ordered. Victoria laughed, a sound that sent chills through the crowd. You're too late, she said. She raised the gun again, pointing it at Sarah. The neighbors screamed, and Mrs. Jenkins threw herself in front of Sarah, shielding her. Before Victoria could pull the trigger, a soldier tackled her. The gun flew from her hand, skidding across the pavement. 2 more soldiers grabbed her arms, pinning her to the ground. She fought, kicking and screaming, but they were too strong. Get off me, Victoria shouted. You don't know what's going on. The soldier in charge walked over to Sarah. Ma'am, are you okay? He asked, his voice softer now. Sarah was shaking, her face pale. I don't know why she shot me, she whispered. I don't even know her. The soldier frowned and glanced at Victoria, who was still yelling as the soldiers handcuffed her. We've been tracking her for weeks, he said. She's dangerous. You're lucky to be alive. Mrs. Jenkins looked up, her hands stained with Sarah's blood. What's happening? Why are soldiers here? This is a quiet neighborhood. The soldier hesitated. "We can't say much," he said. "But this woman is part of something bigger. We're here to stop it." The neighbors gathered closer, whispering to each other. Some pulled out their phones, recording the scene. Kids peeked out from behind their parents, wide-eyed. The military trucks blocked the street, and more soldiers patrolled the area, checking yards and houses. An ambulance arrived, its siren cutting through the noise. Paramedics rushed to Sarah, lifting her carefully onto a stretcher. She winced in pain but tried to stay calm. Mrs. Jenkins held her hand, tears in her eyes. "You're going to be okay," she said. "You're strong, Sarah." As the paramedics loaded Sarah into the ambulance, she looked back at the chaos. Victoria was being dragged to a military truck, her red blazer wrinkled and dirty. The neighbors were shouting questions at the soldiers who gave no answers. The once peaceful street was now a war zone, with fear and confusion everywhere. At the hospital, Sarah lay in a bed, her shoulder bandaged. The bullet had gone through, missing anything vital, but the pain was intense. A doctor told her she'd recover, but it would take time. Mrs. Jenkins stayed by her side, refusing to leave. "Do you know why she did it?" Mrs. Jenkins asked softly. Sarah shook her head. "No," she said. "I've never seen her before she moved here. I don't know what she meant about me hiding." Mrs. Jenkins frowned. "The soldiers said she's part of something bigger. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe she thought you were someone else." Sarah closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I just want to go home," she whispered. Back in Maplewood, the soldiers stayed for hours. They searched Victoria's house, carrying out boxes of papers and computers. Neighbors watched from their windows, too scared to go outside. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said Victoria was a spy. Others thought she was part of a gang. Nobody knew the truth. The soldiers found disturbing things in Victoria's house. Maps of the neighborhood with several houses marked in red. Photos of different people, including Sarah. A diary filled with angry words and strange plants. The neighbors didn't know about these discoveries, but the soldiers looked more serious as the day went on. By evening, the military trucks were gone, and the street was quiet again. But it didn't feel the same. The neighbors were shaken, their trust in their safe little world broken. Kids weren't allowed to play outside anymore. People locked their doors and kept their curtains closed. Mrs. Rodriguez, who lived next to Sarah, couldn't sleep that night. She kept hearing the sound of the gunshot in her mind. Her teenage son, Miguel, had been playing basketball when it happened. He saw everything and couldn't stop talking about Victoria's cold eyes. "Mom, why did she hurt Sarah?" Miguel asked. "Sarah never hurt anyone." Mrs. Rodriguez hugged her son. "Sometimes bad people do bad things," she said. "We just have to look out for each other." The next few days were hard for everyone. The local news came to Maplewood, asking questions and filming reports. Reporters knocked on doors wanting to know what people saw. Most neighbors didn't want to talk. They just wanted to forget. Mr. Chin, who ran the corner store, noticed changes right away. People came in groups now, never alone. They bought extra locks and security cameras. Kids didn't walk to school by themselves anymore. The happy, trusting neighborhood was gone. A week later, Sarah came home from the hospital. Her shoulder was still sore, but she could move her arm a little. Mrs. Jenkins and Mr. Patel helped her settle in, bringing food and flowers. The neighbors visited, offering kind words and hugs. They didn't talk about Victoria or the soldiers. It was too painful. But Sarah couldn't stop thinking about it. Why had Victoria targeted her? What did she mean by hiding? Sarah spent hours going through her old things looking for clues. She found nothing. Her life was simple: work, gardening, and spending time with friends. She had no secrets. Sarah worked as a librarian before her accident. Now she worked from home, helping people find books online. She lived quietly, paid her bills, and loved her garden. There was nothing special about her life, nothing that would make someone want to hurt her. One night, a man knocked on Sarah's door. He was tall, wearing a plain suit, and carried a badge. "I'm Agent Carter," he said. "I need to talk to you about Victoria." Sarah let him in, her heart racing. Agent Carter sat across from her, his face serious. "Victoria wasn't who she seemed," he said. "She was part of a group planning something dangerous. We think she mistook you for someone else." Sarah frowned. "Who?" Agent Carter hesitated. "We can't say much. But the person she was after, they look like you and lived in a similar neighborhood. It was a case of mistaken identity. The person she was looking for is named Sarah Miller," Agent Carter continued. "She's a government worker who knows important secrets. Victoria's group wanted to hurt her, but they got the wrong Sarah. You just happen to have the same first name and live in a similar house." Sarah's hands shook. So she shot me for no reason? Agent Carter nodded. I'm sorry. We should have caught her sooner. We didn't know she was in your neighborhood until it was too late. Sarah felt a mix of anger and relief. She wasn't in danger anymore, but the pain and fear lingered. What happens to her now? She asked. She's in custody, Agent Carter said. She won't hurt anyone again. Her group has been stopped. You're safe now. After he left, Sarah sat in her living room, staring at her garden through the window. The flowers were still blooming, bright and beautiful, but they didn't bring her the same joy. She felt different now, like something inside her had changed. The next morning, Sarah tried to return to her normal routine. She watered her plants and checked her emails. But everything felt strange. She jumped at small sounds. When a car backfired down the street, she dropped her watering can and started shaking. Mrs. Jenkins noticed Sarah's struggles. She started visiting every day, bringing tea and sitting in the garden with her. It's okay to be scared, she said. What happened was terrible. But you survived and you're healing. Over the next few weeks, Sarah worked hard to heal. Physical therapy helped her shoulder, but the emotional scars were harder to fix. She had nightmares about Victoria's cold eyes and the sound of the gun. But she didn't give up. She went back to her garden, pulling weeds and planting new flowers. She waved at her neighbors, forcing a smile even when she didn't feel it. Slowly, other neighbors started helping too. Miguel brought her groceries. Mr. Chin gave her free flowers from his store. Mrs. Rodriguez cooked extra food and shared it with Sarah. The neighborhood was coming together, stronger after the scary experience. The neighbors rallied around her. They organized a block party to lift everyone's spirits. Kids played games, music filled the air, and for a moment, Maplewood felt like home again. Sarah sat in her wheelchair, watching the laughter and joy. Mrs. Jenkins sat beside her, holding her hand. You're stronger than you know, Mrs. Jenkins said. Sarah smiled, a real smile this time. I'm trying, she said. I just want things to be normal again. They will be, Mrs. Jenkins promised. Different but normal. We're all here for you. But deep down, Sarah knew things would never be the same. The memory of that day, the blood, the soldiers, Victoria's cruel smile, would stay with her. Yet she refused to let it define her. She was Sarah, the woman who loved her garden, her neighbors, and her life. No gun, no soldiers, no Victoria could take that away. As the sun set over Maplewood, Sarah looked at her flowers, glowing in the golden light. She took a deep breath and felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could find peace again. With her neighbors by her side and her garden to tend, she would rebuild her life, one day at a time. The street would never be the same quiet place it once was, but it would be something new. A neighborhood where people truly looked out for each other, where kindness grew stronger than fear.